Happy holidays to you and your family, and welcome to the Village of Addison Year in Review for 2014. I'm Don Weiss, and as we have done for each of these past 27 years, we have the opportunity to sit down and take a look back at the past year here in the community of Addison. Joining me once again for that program is the Mayor of the Village of Addison, Rich Veenstra. Mayor Veenstra, welcome once again. Here we are at the holiday season, and before we begin, a happy holidays to you and your family.
Same to you and to all of our community.
Mayor, you had the opportunity in October of this past year to host the mayor from our sister city of Trujano, Italy. And I know at that time Mayor DiNiccolo toured our community. He even helped you open one of the village board meetings while he was here. And I'm just curious, in thinking about our community, especially from where we have come over this past year, you're now nearly year and a half as mayor. What were some of the observations that the mayor from our sister city visiting our community had, and how would you interpret his first impression of the community of Addison? So often we get, kind of bogged down in our day-to-day routine here. We don't really step back and think, well, what would a visitor to our community think about Addison? I'm just curious as to maybe what some of his comments were as you look back.
Well, it was very interesting because, you've heard the saying, you've got to walk in their shoes. And essentially, it's a different perspective. And what I learned in the 11 days he was here is that we tend to take things for granted. We see things on a daily basis and we go, oh yeah, that's normal. But coming from Trujano and being exposed to all of the things that he saw while he was here, we saw it through his eyes. And the awe, quite frankly, that he had when he saw Addison Trail High School and the things that are going on in that school and the way the students interact and the projects and programs that they're involved in. When he went to Clyde's Donuts and saw our manufacturing areas, he went to SWD and saw production in that plant. Things that they don't have routinely or don't do the way we do in Addison. His comments to me were, you guys have it the right way. I wish we could do the things that you do the way you do them here in Addison. And so, the entire experience, I think for him was one of, wow, there's a different way of doing things. And for us is a reaffirmation of how good we really have things here, and that we really are on the cutting edge in a lot of things when you look around and see how other people do things.
And I guess the premise of my question and asking you your observation is even living in this community, we do forget how good we have things and the opportunities that we have available. You mentioned education in your comment just now. You mentioned business. We know that our works extend well beyond just the day-to-day routine, the things that you work on a regular basis, you and the elected officials, the staff in the village hall, and everybody in all the other agencies. We work on a lot of things all the time. What we fail to forget, or we fail to remember though, what we do forget is how far our reach can extend. Right. And I believe in the comments that you just gave and the observations from the mayor when he visited from Trujano probably bear that out well.
Well, I mean, he was totally amazed at the intergovernmental cooperation that we have. He has 17 competing political parties that he has to form a coalition just to stay in office. So to see the way we work together as trustees, mayor, and the other agencies, he just could not believe how well that model works and how efficient it is.
We've talked a lot this year, and I think you've made it more or less a hallmark of your term as mayor in your first term, in your first year and a half in that office, about marketing the community. And that can mean a lot of different things to different people, but you have impressed upon the staff, and specifically you've talked to the people in our department in community relations about how critical marketing is now. And I think you have reinvigorated the term of the Addison advantage and what it means today, maybe as opposed to things that it may have meant 10 or 15 years ago, let's say, but it's kind of taken on a new look, and you're very serious and very critical in a positive way about making sure that these things are being done so it engages the community. Tell our viewers a little bit about why you feel it's important that a community such as Addison market itself and what that means to both residents and people who may be visiting our community.
Well, I think the marketing is twofold. One is internal marketing to our community itself, and one is external to the potential businesses that we can develop and bring people into our town. The first one, the internal marketing, I think Mayor DiNicolo's visit was really emblematic of that, and that's we take things for granted. We become blasé about the things we do, so we don't celebrate them, we don't appreciate them. He saw things in our community that he wished he had, and I think we need to highlight those internally, whether you're talking to different service organizations, whether you're talking to different church groups, and all that they individually do for the community and all of the positive things that happen in our community. We have to really celebrate those and make it broadly known to our residents all these good things that go on. So we don't take small incidents and isolate but magnify them into big issues. And on the whole, Addison does a lot of things very, very well and exceeds and is a model for other communities. Those are the things that we have to sell and educate our residents on. Mm-hmm. The next step is then selling the Addison product, who we are, what we are, our resources, our retail, our businesses, to the external population, where we could bring economic growth into our community. So 2 phases of marketing, and we're using the Addison Advantage as the umbrella to really kind of trademark that.
Mm-hmm. To what do you credit the success of this year's Rock and Wheels series? I think it has taken an unprecedented step forward, mm-hmm. and I think you and the village board might agree with that.
Definitely.
You, ladies and gentlemen, were out there every week. You talked to your fellow residents, you talked to your constituents, you talked to people who don't necessarily live in Addison, mm-hmm. or who have come back to Addison. You have talked to the business community that is in one way or another part of that event. And at the end of the summer, I approached you and a lot of other people and said, you know that we had 10,000 people here during the course of the summer. Mm-hmm. To what do you credit the success of that event?
I think, again, multiple facets and factors. One is that the Special Events Committee has worked diligently over the years to build the program, and it slowly was gaining, not to the extent that we had last year. I think their hard work, coupled with the fact that we recognized that the entertainment needed to be hyped a little bit, but again, working with the Addison Advantage Task Force, the different community groups, and having them co-sponsor and be part of the event where they would bring some of their organization into the event, started getting a critical mass of people attending, and the socialization that happened where, hey, I haven't seen you in years. That really became, I think, the foremost factor in bringing people back week after week. And it seemed toward the end, it really didn't matter what the venue was. People just enjoyed getting out, celebrating community, and being with friends. And that's what we want to reinvigorate in the community, is that feeling of camaraderie, friendship, neighborly associations, and interactions.
You also, for the first time this year, brought together a number of stakeholders for an expanded Memorial Day celebration during Memorial Day weekend. Observance, maybe a more appropriate term, but you brought a lot of stakeholders and some new people on board to look at the weekend of Memorial Day and to kind of codify everything and bring that together for the community. And also held you worked with the clergy in the community to put together a very unique community interfaith Thanksgiving program on November 23rd. All in all, those things all combined together sounds like kind of a marketing package in itself through the Addison Advantage Task Force and its various components.
It is exactly. And, the commonality of different service groups, what their end goal is very similar. And what we found and what we knew initially is that working by yourself, you could do a little bit, but working together, you gain that synergy, and different organizations coming together for the common cause is much more effective than working individually. And that's how the Addison Advantage Task Force started working with the Memorial Day program. And we had the same experience with the different church groups. Each church in Addison has their own functions and their own fundraising activities and worship services, but there's a commonality that we've never brought together before. And they working together collegially, interdenominationally, to put on programs that reach all aspects of our community is where you really gain the strength. And the Thanksgiving celebration, I think, was very exemplary of what can happen when you do that. So it's bringing groups together to gain the synergy and to grow community.
And you see the role of the village as facilitator in a lot of these things too. The village can't run everything. A lot of people think that's the way it is, and that's the way it's been for a long time. But the village can't do all of these things, nor should it really be doing all of these things. And I think somebody has to kind of ramp it up and I guess push the pedal down a little bit and say we should engage ourselves now. And I think you, along with everyone who's been involved in it at both the elected officials and staff level, would agree that, yeah, these are the things that the village can do to make it a better community.
Well, we're in a unique position where we see all of the different pieces, and you can't see the forest from the trees kind of a thing where everybody's busy doing it, but if you look at the puzzle and say, let's start putting the pieces together, then you really have a finished product. And that's kind of where I see the role of the mayor and the village in bringing people together.
Looking forward and looking ahead to 2015, do you expect that some of these marketing, community event type projects that we've talked about, do you anticipate them continuing on the path that they have over this past year?
Definitely. I know we've already talked about enlarging the Memorial Day event. The Church Leadership Council is what we call the meeting of the pastors that happens. They met today, and they've already starting to plan 2 or 3 other additional events coming up next year. So yeah, last year was, I hopefully think, is the seed that is going to start to grow rapidly, and I see it expanding, and each organization will ultimately then come together and work even more collaboratively.
Well, we're going to take a break right now. We'll continue in our conversation with Mayor Veenstra. When we get back, we're going to be talking about some community development issues, economic development issues, where are projects and things standing within the community over this past year, and we will explore some of those areas with Mayor Veenstra as we continue in our Village of Addison Year in Review for 2014 in just a moment. Welcome back to the Village of Addison Year in Review for 2014. We are very happy that you have chosen to spend your holidays here with us here on Addison Community Television. We're going to turn now to some economic development issues and community development projects with Mayor Veenstra. But Mayor, as we do so, I might mention for our community, encourage them to mark their calendars, their new 2015 calendars for the weekends of February 7th and 14th. We're going to be having a home improvement expo here in the rotunda of the Addison Village Hall, featuring Addison businesses, right? Kind of a one-stop opportunity. Right. I guess if you've never used any of our local businesses for any home improvement projects, this would probably be a good time to check them out, because the community will have the opportunity to see them up close and talk to them, and that helps keep our dollars here in Addison.
It certainly does, and it gives the residents an opportunity to talk to experts that are here in town that can guide them in the right way of using a hammer or any of the tools that are necessary for the repairs.
Very true. We'll have representatives from police and fire, community development, to talk about things that you need to know about building permits, which is important, particularly kind of at the late winter time before spring home improvement projects begin. So that's the Village of Addison's Home Improvement Expo on February 7th and 14th.
And I want to credit your department for coming up with that idea. So.
Thank you. They're looking forward to it.
And you'll also get credit for it bombs. So.
That's right. We hope for success.
It will be a big success, I'm sure.
Well, let's talk about some community development issues, both dealing with businesses, the business community, and also some infrastructure projects and things that are going on right now. Each month, Mayor, when we visit on the Ask Mayor Veenstra program, you get questions about what's going on in this area, what's happening within this area of the business community. And I guess the overriding one always seems to be what's happening with the former Dominic's property at Lake Street and Mill Road at the southeast corner of that intersection. And we've seen a new facade, and we've seen quite a few new businesses coming into that area. Can you give us an update on the work that's been happening at that?
Yeah, the owner of the plaza, Mr. Rafidia, has done a lot of work in at least improving the appearance of the complex. There will be work continuing in spring to finalize the redo of the parking lot with islands, and so we're looking forward to even improved aesthetics on the property. He still is in negotiations. He's still talking to Export Fitness. The market is still pretty tight right now. We're seeing signs of a resurgence in retail, and so we're hoping to see some movement soon. But it's been a very difficult, long struggle, and getting the right businesses in is really key. Just recently, the board approved a change in the zoning, which will allow a little wider selection of businesses potential to come into that area. So we're doing what we can to help him, but the expectation is something will happen hopefully soon as the economy starts gaining a little traction.
You mentioned in your comment now about the right kind of business, which leads me to believe then that there's a certain standard that you want to see, that you and the village board want to see when redevelopment takes place. A store or a business leaves, goes out of business, and that's probably the number one primary area. There are several others in the community, but I know that you folks and the community have been anxious to see not just those other businesses that have come in, but also kind of the major anchor in that area, but the right kind of business. Where do you see Addison in relation to other communities, for example, or that type of standard? What is the standard that you're looking for, especially along our prime commercial corridor?
I think the reality is, and we've heard for years, we're in the center of a donut. You've got some major shopping centers with the big boxes, and so if we're ever going to get a big box, I'm not that optimistic, but having quality stores that support the needs of our community are very, very important. A lot of property owners, sometimes because it's been a rough economic stretch, they'll jump at the first opportunity. And if it's something that is, I'll use just examples. Massage is a big thing now. Well, if massage parlors want to come in, let's make sure they're quality and professional, and that's something that we would be embarrassed about. One of the easy fixes are smoke shops now. You're turning around in every corner, not necessarily in Addison, but throughout. That's been a fad. Is that a business that you want to see anchor a shopping center or a retail area? And is that a business that will promote growth and further development on a higher scale? And that's kind of the barometer that we're using in terms of, is this a business that is going to help the Addison advantage be recognized? Is this a business that's going to help us get another business of equal or better caliber? And settling for low-end stuff that really is not going to benefit the village or the community, but maybe puts a few dollars in the owner's pocket and isn't beneficial to the community, is something that we're not really supportive of. And if owners don't have enough pride in the community to make sure that the property that they own is being taken care of and upgraded to standards where we can say, wow, we're proud of having that building on the corner, that's a problem. So one of the things that we've been focusing on is, this carrot and the stick. We are more than willing to work with developers and businesses in facade improvement programs and things that we can offer, TIF incremental projects, that type of thing. But we're not going to settle for less than average or above average, and preferably above average development. And we're not going to incentivize owners that don't take care of the property. So, that's kind of the criteria that we're looking at this point.
Well, keeping with our discussion about economic development and business, let's talk about the JC Plaza. That's out at Lake Street and Addison Road corridor there, home of what was the former John's Restaurant, right. John's Pizza, and so on, and there are still businesses in that area. And there is a pending plan in that area right now, over within right within the town center footprint also. So,
right.
Any news that you're hearing about what's happening at that center?
They are still planning on going ahead. What they will do is take down the front portion of the John's Restaurant, the old John's Restaurant, and redo the entire facade. We will work with them on facade improvement, but again, our expectations are that if they have to backfill businesses in there, we would like to see some quality development, restaurants or those kinds of things in there. But they are moving along, and we're hoping to see some groundbreaking and some progress in the spring.
And that is obviously kind of at the eastern end of the village, which at many times people would say, boy, there's a lot going on out on the west end of the community. What's happening on the east end? So this would be, when it comes to fruition, really a revitalization of the eastern corridor.
Well, and I think it's key. If we do this right, then other retailers will say that's a viable place to be, and that's really the end game, is to revitalize the east side of town.
Sure. Can you tell us what's been happening out at the Centennial Plaza, I guess going back out now to the west end of the community, because there have been a number of businesses that have gone out in that area, and that's kind of been a well-established commercial corridor at the western end of the community, anchored by a number of pretty large-scale businesses. But the retail plaza itself has kind of had some fits and starts over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and that's been a huge frustration for all of us. The original owners lost the property. It went into receivership. The bank has someone managing the plaza now, and what I'm hearing is that there are several different businesses that are interested in getting involved. A couple of restaurants are looking at it. So I think with the change in ownership and probably a desire to drive some money back into the property, we're going to see some development, hopefully in the near future. But it has changed hands, and one of the hang-ups that we were aware of is that the original loan agreements that the owner had precluded him from selling property, and he had his hands tied for a lot of potential businesses. That should change now, and we're hoping that that opportunity will lead to some growth over there.
One other item in economic development areas actually was as a result of the Route 53 improvement project, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But there was a gas station at the southeast corner at Lake Street and Route 53 that is going to be undergoing a huge redevelopment project, that former mobile gas station at the corner there, and it's going to be expanded and have a car wash and a number of amenities there. But as a result, we're also able to get rid of a kind of an unsightly billboard in that area too.
One of the agendas that really has been led by our village manager, but is we had, I think, somewhere around 8 or 9 of the billboard signs in Addison, which are very unattractive and distracting, and I think we've now got 7 of them taken down. So we're well on the way of at least improving the aesthetics. The Buc-ee's is the organization that will be doing the renovation of the gas station. We're hoping to see again, they were going back and forth with the Army Corps of Engineers because they have to reclaim some of the wetland and have compensatory replacement. That's all been resolved, so now we're just waiting to see the revised plans that they have and make sure that financially it's still within their plans for the development, but it's moving along.
This past year, when the state of Illinois' law to allow medical marijuana dispensing and cultivating facilities kind of went into full effect, Addison has been one of many communities statewide that has been approached by, and I think by our last count, no less than 16 potential upstart companies that would be looking at locating possibly within the community. We really haven't talked much about medical marijuana, but Addison certainly has been approached by a number of these business people who are looking to kind of set up shop for the dispensing of medical marijuana. Can you just tell us kind of a little bit about the process of what this is all about and what the village has to do with any of this?
Well, when Illinois approved the medical marijuana back about a year ago, we realized that that would have some implication potential for the village. So we passed an ordinance that restricted medical marijuana, should it become an issue in Addison, to be in our industrial area. So we wanted to make sure that we had provided an area that was safe, and we weren't sure how this whole thing was going to develop, but we didn't want it to become something that you'd be able to up and down the streets. As the program started to mature on a state level, as a pharmacist, obviously I was very concerned about the implications for medical marijuana, and is it really medical marijuana, or is it just a facade to get recreational marijuana on the street? As we did research and had some experts speak to us, the medical indications for marijuana are persuasive, and there are very good medical reasons for the use of marijuana. with that, I still had some concerns in terms of just community acceptance, because all you have to say is marijuana, and it has a stigma,
Sure.
and well-deserved at times. So we do have the Church Leadership Council, and I went to them and said, there's a potential down the road that maybe this is going to be something that we're going to have to discuss. What do you think? And I was kind of surprised, but then as I thought about it, not really, that the first question is it medically viable and necessary? Are there indications for it? And clearly there is. Second question is, how is it controlled? Well, as a pharmacist, I know the controls that have been put into place are every bit as rigorous as the ones that they have for oxycodone and all of the other legal prescription drugs. And does it help people? And clearly there's a lot of evidence that shows that it has a positive effect for the medical uses indicated. So looking at all that criteria, without exception, all of them said, if it's therapeutic, if it's legal, if it helps people, why would we be opposed to it? So at least that gave us a feeling of, okay, if this comes to the Addison, there is a right reason, and we're okay with it. In subsequent months, we've heard that Addison may be one of the sites selected in DuPage County for potential a dispensing facility. Because of our location in DuPage County, they're looking at they'll issue 3 dispensing licenses for DuPage County. Our understanding is no community would get more than 1, but they're looking at geographic distribution. The governor ultimately will select. There was a very rigorous evaluation and review process that each potential distributor had to go through, and volumes of documentation. And there's a state board that's reviewing that, and recommendations will be made to the governor. And the anticipation is that by the end of December, there may be announcements of the businesses that have been awarded a license for medical marijuana.
So your opinion is most likely there will be one in Addison?
There is a fairly good chance that there would be, yeah.
Right. Well,
before you go, one of the things that's required by law is that medical marijuana distributor needs to donate back to the community for drug abuse programs and for community programs. So there will be monies coming back, should there be a dispensary in Addison, that will go to a prevention program as well as to some community resource programs.
So putting resources back into the community, while at the same time, and I think you talked to the church council about this, it clearly does have a benefit from a medicinal standpoint, and as long as the regulations and the controls are put on it, and in your profession as a pharmacist, I think you've already expressed that, it's something that would probably be good for people when they need something like that. So. Well, we're going to now turn in just a moment to take a look at some public works projects, and we're going to find out what's the status on the 4-year-old Illinois Route 53 project. Also take a look at a big project that the Public Works Department has had ongoing in the area of their master plan and making huge improvements to the Village of Addison's sewer system. It sounds like kind of a routine thing, but yet when you see the money behind it and the importance, you'll understand why this has been on the front burner for the village board during this past year. We'll get to those issues and more coming up in our Year in Review interview with Mayor Rich Veenstra when we return following these messages. We're back with Mayor Rich Veenstra and the Village of Addison's 2014 Year in Review. And Mayor, as we've been talking and going to our breaks during the program, we've been taking a look at the beautiful Christmas decorations that are outside of Village Hall and the Friendship Plaza area. And without question, credit for the beautiful displays during the holiday season goes to the Village's Public Works Department.
Definitely.
And I know that you and the board and the village manager continuously receive compliments about how nice the decorations look, and I think it does bring a sense of pride to our community, for our residents and those who may be passing through the Village of Addison.
No, it definitely does. I've gotten calls from a resident in Barrington telling me that she drives through Addison at least once a week, and she will actually stop and just look at the lighting and chill. She looks forward to that, and so it really is something that we're very proud of. We certainly are recognized throughout DuPage County as having one of the best light displays in town. A couple of weeks ago, before one of the board meetings, a Cub Scout, or actually it was a Boy Scout troop, was doing a badge project, and one of the questions that he asked me was, why are we doing this? And the answer really is twofold. One is that it's a feel-good for our community. There's certainly some expense involved with it, but our guys are out there. The guys that do the snow plowing are the same guys that put up the lights. But it's something that we're proud of as a community. It makes us all feel good. It gets us into the holiday season. But from an economic perspective, people come to see the lights. Well, people come and they're hungry. They stop for
That's right.
food. They stop at our restaurants. They maybe stop at Marcus. So there's an economic reason to it also that is kind of behind the scenes, but it works to, again, draw attention to our community and to have something that we're all proud of.
You mentioned snow plowing, and I think it might be a good opportunity for us to talk about that. Obviously, the winter of 2013-14 went down in our record books as one of the worst, and we had snow plow crews out. It seemed like every other day, sometimes a couple of days. I know that on Christmas Day there were a couple of call-outs. We're sitting here now about 2 weeks before Christmas, so we cannot fully predict the weather conditions for the end of December, but what were the lessons learned, or maybe the procedures that were kind of beefed up a little bit after this past winter, the 2013-14 season, coming into our current season? It seems like we talked about that until about March of this year.
Right.
I know Mitch Patterson was with you on your show at that time, and here we are not too many months later. Yep, we're sitting around talking about snow plowing again. So any proactive measures that have been taken, or at least getting ready for it, come this current season?
Well, I like to think our Board of Trustees is visionary, so we passed an ordinance outlawing snow in Addison. So,
that is a visionary.
So we've taken care of it.
You're right.
But seriously, our guys really are on the ball. And I think if you'll talk to any other community in the area, people will routinely say, I know exactly when I'm on Addison streets. That's because right. They are clean and dry. So, the key is really preparation and dedication. We have a team that they love to be out there. I mean, they'll say they hate it, but, get those trucks moving and get that snow plowed.
Sure.
So I think there's a real focus and a sense of pride that they do it well, and it's recognized for being done well. But we've been very proactive in making sure that our salt dome is full. We did that last year. We had salt coming in January, which was ahead of the curve, and we had salt when other communities came to us and wanted to borrow salt or buy from us. So, I think it's a tribute to our management team that they really take it seriously. They know it's a safety hazard if it's not addressed appropriately. And the employees that we have in Public Works take it as a challenge, and they do a heck of a job, and they know how important it is to all of us.
And taking time away from their families as well. When they're called out overtime, especially over the holidays, it can be rough. But they have a job to do, and as you said, they do it with a sense of pride and well-being for the community.
Right, right.
Well, speaking of roadways and traveling through the community as safely as possible, the Illinois Route 53 project celebrated its 4th birthday. Hopefully we're not going to have to put it through college, but it's my understanding, I never want to be the one to say it's almost done, but I'm seeing words like conclusion and restoration and so on. So are we kind of to the point where I guess the underlying project has finally come to some sort of a conclusion?
We are down to the punch list now. And I saw the punch list from Mitch last week, and my comment was, well, it's 2 more years of work. But the basic is we're done with the project. There are some repairs that have to be made. We pushed very hard at the last phase to make sure that they got it done. And so there's some remediation work that is there. There's some lighting issues that have to be addressed. But the roadway itself and everything else that's really important at this point is completed. So the 2-year project that took 4 years should be put to bed by now.
Now, of course, we know that this was a state of Illinois project, Illinois Department of Transportation, but of course it's a major arterial through our community, and we did have some local projects that went along with it. I noticed that the traffic signals rather, at Woodland, and then up at the retail corridor there near Sam's Club are functioning, operating just as they should be. So we hope that's a good thing for holiday shoppers and motoring safely. But lessons learned from this. Our local business community, as you heard from your retail summit members, really kind of had to take a hit during these past 4 years. And the prices, we have a new safe state-of-the-art road. The downside, of course, is business had to suffer as a result of that. So it's our fervent hope that people will continue to visit their local business community here and show those businesses that we're glad that they survived that Illinois Route 53 project.
Well, and one of the things that we were concerned about is when you're looking at a 3 or 4 year reroutes of traffic, people forget the habits and the direction that they used to go. So if you lose that incremental traffic every day, that's a huge economic hit. So we've really tried to market and provide some incentives for people to come back to the west side of town. And what I'm hearing from some of our businesses there is that they are seeing an uptick again. So that's the good news.
The Public Works Department has been working very hard to get their master plan project completed. They were able to do this through the help of a low-interest loan from the state of Illinois and upgrading facilities that are very critical. As I mentioned before the break, or at the time of our break, when we talk about the sewer systems and so on, people think, oh, that's not important. Well, it's important when you need it. And storm sewers and sanitary sewers are ultra critical to a community's well-being. And our Public Works Department, our staff, went and laid an entire project out for a number of improvements, upgrades, equipment replacements, lift stations, which the board talks about occasionally in their meetings, are mission critical when it comes time to storm events. I think you would agree.
Definitely.
And there were about a half dozen or so that were replaced this year. So overall, kind of looking at it from sort of a higher elevation, why was this important that Public Works undertake this master plan?
Well, I think you have to recognize we're celebrating our 130th anniversary. And while our sewers aren't quite 130 years old, some of them are not that
pretty
far
close.
off.
That's right. That's right.
And working infrastructure is critical for the well-being of the community. And you get to a point where you just have to say, okay, it's time to upgrade and modernize. And when you have continual breaks in sewers and piping throughout the community, that expense becomes more than you want to deal with on a emergent basis. So making sure that we're maintaining and upgrading wherever possible. The lift stations are required to move fluids to a higher level so they can flow down to the ultimate disposition. Those are critical. If the lift stations aren't working the way they should be, you have backflow and you have bottlenecks and
big problems.
Flooding throughout the village. So they're critical. And while the money is significant, fortunately we were able to get low interest rates to subsidize the cost of it. And but again, it's just something that you have to do to keep the village going and contemporary with our neighboring communities.
And these are the infrastructure projects. They're typically, these are the underground things. This is like anything else in the house. Do you want to talk about the nice new deck that you have in the yard, or you want to talk about the furnace? Well, the point is the furnace is just as important, and kind of using a little bit of an analogy there, but we know that it's important to keep our operations running. It's so I guess frustrating possibly, but also at the same time it's a lot of hard work when you as the elected officials have to say, do we want to look at the snazzy new business? Do we want to look at the nice new safe road? Do we want to have the big events and the marketing and the come together? And do we want to also have infrastructure that works properly? And the answer to all in a safe community and
yes to all of it.
Yes to all of it, exactly. And so the prioritization must become critical. But when you have the opportunity, when the village had the opportunity to get that low interest loan, some $7 million, I believe it was, correct? $7 million at an interest rate of under 2%. That's a pretty good deal for the village.
You can't walk away from that.
Exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, it's working smart and understanding the global needs of the community and saying, okay, this year we may prioritize sidewalks and sewers, but maybe next year we need to prioritize some feel-good events, and Thursday night Rock and Wheels is an important asset to develop. So it goes back and forth, but ultimately you have to look at the big picture and say, where do we need to be as a community next year or the year after and subsequent.
Well, we're going to talk about a couple of financial things. The village is right in the midst of budget preparation time, so it's probably a good time to talk about that as well. And as the mayor just mentioned, Thursday night in Rockin' Wheels and 130th anniversary, there was a very special treat for our community this past year at the Rockin' Wheels events on Thursday night as Addison celebrated its 130th anniversary in 2014. So we're going to talk about a couple of those topics, and then we will see what the mayor's vision is for coming into the new year of 2015 as we continue in our final segment with Mayor Rich Veenstra and the Village of Addison's Year in Review in just a moment. Welcome back in our final segment with the Village of Addison Year in Review for 2014. Mayor Veenstra joins us. We were just chatting, or about to chat, about some financial issues. I understand the final dollar amount is in on the 2014 Mayor's Community Charity Ball. Mayor, would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, we took in about $53,000 that evening. So that money will be distributed at a board meeting to the 18 different organizations that participated. And so it was a great event. We had 518 attending, and again, it's a cornerstone for us of activities for the year and reflective of, I think, who we are as a community.
Very much so. In the area of finance, the Village of Addison for a number of years has had what they call tax increment financing districts. They are unique forms of economic development and kind of a revenue incentive for development to help spur development within an area. And just within the last couple of months, really near the end of 2014, 2 TIF districts were actually closed off. The work was completed, right? And that's probably a good thing, because then you can kind of look back and say, hey, look at all the projects we did, or hey, I guess there wasn't a whole lot of work that needed to be done in a certain area. So as a result, then everybody kind of benefits from when a TIF district is closed.
Right. And just quickly, when a TIF is approved and it's intergovernmental taxing body approval, the current property tax is frozen. So as the value of the property goes up through redevelopment, that incremental tax that's generated then helps to pay for that development. So tax monies are generated that then go to the projects that help develop, the area. TIF 1 is the first one that we're closing, and that's the Mill Road Army Trail project. And we had a lot of substantial development in that area with the corner of the intersection by the old golf course. Yes. So that was very successful, and it's come to a point where the development that we wanted to see is there now. And so closing that, we'll be able to, actually the county will be able to rebate back to the taxing bodies about $800,000 from taxes that were collected for 2013. So that's kind of an early Christmas gift to our other taxing agencies.
I appreciate that.
And but again, it served the purpose, and we were very happy. And we actually closed it 2 years before we anticipated. Yes. So that's a good thing. Then TIF 4 is the second one, and that was a very small TIF that we were hoping to see some residential development, and for various reasons, it just really never happened. We didn't see any increase in assessed valuation or property value, and again, because we don't see that changing, we decided that it's time to just retire that also. So we're closing 2 of the 4 TIFs that we have, and the others, hopefully in the not too distant future, will also close, and they'll have done their jobs.
Right. Well, this past year, as I mentioned a moment ago, was Addison's 130th anniversary, and the village really recognized that and made sure that the community was aware of it and aware of all the heritage that goes along with being a community of 130 years. And Mayor Veenstra, you talked to one of our Addison residents, a very talented musician and very involved and active in the community, and asked him to undertake a little bit of a project. And before we hear what the final result of that was, tell us how you approached Joe Kalish and have him pen his song and put it to music.
Well, Joe has been very visible in our Rockin' Wheels for years now, and very involved in our community, is in a contemporary choir at the church he belongs to, and really has deep feelings about our community. And I knew that, and talking to him, I said, Joe, 130, it's kind of a special thing. You're out there almost every week helping out or participating in the Rockin' Wheels, and I know that you've done significant writing. is there any chance that you could do something that kind of reflects who we are as a community? And he goes, well, I could try. And there were suggestions that he go to the museum and study the history of Addison and do things to find out who we were as a community. And that just wasn't Joe. And one afternoon he was sitting in his front porch and he was just looking at the neighborhood, and he saw some kids learning how to do their skateboard up and down the street, and some neighbors out enjoying just an afternoon of neighborly interaction. And that really was the genesis for what he did for us then. And the rest is history.
And the song is called Addison Anthem, and Joe Kalish performed it on the last night of Rockin' Wheels, the night of our 130th anniversary celebration, August 28th. Here is Joe Kalish and the Addison Anthem.
Well, it's been 130 years since we first started here. Wonder where the time has gone. We're called the town of friendship, where families live and worship. It's how we stayed so strong. Yeah, it's how we stayed so strong. And we call this place our home. Well, it's a place where we can sit outside, watch our children learn to ride. There's skateboards down the street. It's where they get to go to school, learn about that golden rule, walk down their street with pride. Yeah, it's how we stayed so strong. And we call this place our home. Proud and help me sing along. We're Addison. Well, it's where we have our village square. Listen to our music there on a moonlit summer night. Well, our local restaurants share their food, pizza, beer, and ice cream too, for our friends and family. Stayed so strong, and we call this place our home. Yeah, we call this place, we call this place our home. So won't you help me sing along? We're Addison. Sing along, we're Addison. Addison, we're Addison. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.
In fact, Joe Kalish's song went over so well during the summer, we had him do a return engagement at the Mayor's Community Charity Ball.
And he got a standing ovation for that.
It was great. It was great. Well, Mayor, we've come to the end of our year in review program. We've taken a look back at a very busy, active, and a very important year, I think, in the community. Every year is important, I'm sure, but we have so many things to look back on and a great sense of pride, and I know that you and the village board, certainly from the staff, we are all proud of the work that we've accomplished during 2014. Definitely. Before we close and march headfirst right into the holiday season, I ask you to take this opportunity to share a greeting of the season with our community.
Well, on behalf of myself, my family, and the village board, I want to wish all of the residents of Addison the merriest of holidays and best wishes for a happy, healthy, and successful new year. Thank you all very much for being part of the Addison Advantage.
Mayor, thank you very much as well for spending this hour with us as we've taken a look back on the Village of Addison in the year 2014, and the very best to the holidays to you as well.
Same to you,
and
Dan.
to our entire community, thank you very much for joining us. On behalf of all of us here at Addison Community Television, our best wishes to you for a very happy holiday season. See you again in 2015.